Hannah! Hannah! Did you hear the news? The Macroterror's getting animated! The Macroterror's getting animated? The Macroterror's getting animated! Woo! Oh, just one more thing. Ooh! Bye-bye! It takes you away. 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 And that's how the title of this episode ties in with the story. Pretty weakly, to be honest. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my revisitation review of Doctor Who Series 11 Episode 9, It Takes You Away. Okay, It Takes You Away. I've got some history with this episode. But before I talk about that, the plot. The plot of this episode sees the Doctor and her companions arriving in Norway, present-day Norway, where they find an abandoned house, or rather it would be abandoned if it wasn't for the fact that there is a blind girl living there. However, her father has disappeared, and they believe that there is something in the woods, some sort of monster, some sort of creature, and she believes her father has been taken. However, the TARDIS team actually finds something else in the house, a mirror that somehow is a doorway to another universe via this kind of buffer zone in the middle. And they enter a universe that is reflecting the real universe. And it turns out it's a brand new universe created by this creature called the Solitract. And it's reflecting the other area, the real universe. When I say reflecting, like in a mirror. As it's trying to find a way to come into the real universe. Or at least have some company to come into their universe. To be with them as they are feeling lonely. So that's basically the plot of It Takes You Away. It's promoted before the episode broadcast. It was promoted to be like a mystery horror. That's what the trailers implied. But ultimately, it turns out to be a wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, well, maybe not timey-wimey, but wibbly-wobbly sci-fi story with a very interesting premise, come to mention it. But the whole stuff with the scary monster and thing, that was what the story was promoted to be, and then it turned into this sci-fi story. Were they hoping that people would be a bit surprised when it turned out to be a different story to what they were expecting? They were expecting a scary monster in the woods, and they were going to build that up for over the time. Basically, Hyde meets Eaters of Light, perhaps. But no, it's a sci-fi story. So I don't know why they just didn't say sci-fi story and just built up the horror stuff. I know they want to avoid spoilers, but you can say this is a sci-fi story. They did show a little bit in one of the trailers, but ultimately not much. And honestly, this episode had the worst Next Time trailer at the end of the Witchfinders. It basically tells you nothing apart from the Doctor and company arrive in Norway. It's probably the worst Next Time trailer in terms of what it tells you, as it doesn't really tell you anything. Okay, so It Takes You Away. Now, my history with this episode is that when I first watched it, I didn't think it was that great. I thought it was okay. Something actually felt off about it when I first watched it, and even when rewatching it, I didn't quite get into it as much, and ultimately it ended up being my second least favourite story of the series. When I came to doing its review for the Universals, funny enough, I got the 2 episodes of the series I liked the least on first viewing, or first and second viewings, when I did my individual reviews on the Universals, as well as joining the trio member ones of the opening and the finale. So yeah, this one ended up being my second least favourite of the series, after Saranga Conundrum. However, rewatching it now, it's actually kind of shot up to the middle. The series 11 ranking, it will probably come 6th, maybe? 6th or 7th. So it shot up to the middle. I really liked this episode on a rewatch. My main criticisms out the way first. The first third is a bit dull and a bit slow and boring. It's trying to build up the monster in the woods thing, and that's fine. And it's fine having it as a twist. I do think the twist comes a bit too soon. I think it comes around 20 minutes in. I think maybe we could have saved it as the halfway mark. And if you were to split these episodes into 2 25-minute episodes like the classic series, that could have been what would have been the cliffhanger, perhaps. There isn't really a monster, it's all a trick. But why? That's what we've got to find out in the second half. So I think the reveal of the monster could have come halfway through, as opposed to maybe end of Act 1, start of Act 2. But it is interesting to see the sci-fi elements take place as well. But I think the whole monster being revealed to be fake could have been saved to halfway through the episode. So a couple more minutes. It is quite slow in that first third. I don't mind them arriving at the place and meeting with Hannah and that taking quite a long time. Maybe what could also have happened is if they saved the reveal of the mirror being a gateway to another universe, and they just try to prepare themselves for another monster invasion. Sorry, not for a monster invasion, a monster attack, as well as attempt to go and find out what's going on. But as they're about to go, they then find the mirror is turned into this portal, and then they go and explore that. I also find the flesh-eating moths to be a bit pointless. For starters, the Solitract isn't a physical being. It can't be eaten by moths. Second of all, it kind of takes focus away of the story, as does the character of Ribbons, I'm sorry to say, and it takes a lot of time off from focusing on the main parts of the story. And ultimately, when Ryan and Hannah get down there, well, they do find the moths, but it probably just would have been better if the moths weren't in this episode, because they're not really needed. It's kind of just there to be a monster of the story, alongside Ribbons, who's this strange creature played by Kevin Eldon, and he's really great. He gives me Razor vibes from World Enough in Time, but unfortunately it's not the Master in Disguise this time. If it was, he wouldn't have died. But yeah, Kevin Eldon does good as Ribbons, but the character Ribbons and the moths didn't need to be there. You just need the buffer zone, and that's about it. But that's really about it with main issues, I suppose. Pacing is another issue I've had with this one. It could have picked the pace up a little bit. Maybe the first act could have been a bit more suspenseful before they find the portal. Then the twist of the monster not actually existing and it's all sounds. Then the reveal of what's actually going on, and cut out all of the stuff with Ribbons and the moths, and you just have maybe going through the buffer zone for a few minutes, and that's about it. However, it is once you get past all of that is when we get to the really good stuff with the Solitract universe, where Hannah's dad is tempted to stay there with his late wife and Hannah's late mother being there, and Grace is also there. Somehow they are alive again. This universe is giving people what they want, their loved ones back. And these scenes really do a great job with focusing on the grief of Graham and also Hannah's dad after losing their loved ones. So some great emotional moments, and they struggle to accept that they're not the real ones. Although I'm not entirely keen on the Doctor kind of going a bit too explanatory about it all. Just get to the point. Although I did like the stuff about Granny 5 talking about the Solitract story. That was funny. Although how would the Time Lords know about Zygons? That was just a line for a joke, but yeah, the Granny 5 stuff was fun, but I think the Doctor could have got to the point more about the Solitract itself a bit better, and it kind of diverts ourselves away from the Grace Graham stuff. But that being said, there's some pretty great character moments in this episode. First of all, as mentioned, we've got some great character moments between Grace and Graham. We also have some good stuff with Ryan and Hannah, who don't get on quite well. Ryan's not that great with kids, I don't think, and Hannah wasn't so fond of him, suggesting that her dad ran off and left her. But over the story, they kind of bond a bit more together as Ryan tries to keep her safe. The interactions between the Doctor and the Solitract as well are really great. I really enjoyed them. As I said in my review in 2018, the bit with the frog on the chair didn't bother me because it was the universe, the Solitract itself, representing itself in physical form to the Doctor, and it chose the frog because Grace O'Brien liked frogs, although I do think that should have been a bit more obvious in previous episodes. Maybe in Iraqis in UK you could have seen, I don't know, a brass frog or something in the living room or in the house. Maybe we could have seen Graham wear Grace's frog necklace a bit more. She might have had it in Woman Who Fell to Earth, but it was very unnoticeable. Very difficult to tell if it was. It Takes You Away was the second episode to be filmed, so maybe they were expecting him to wear it more, but ultimately he didn't. And he doesn't really wear it that much afterwards. It's kind of hidden. So I'm a bit disappointed that there weren't as much obvious clues to Grace liking frogs, as mentioned in this episode, because that would have made a lot of sense. But with the frog, however, as I mentioned, I don't mind the Solitract taking the form of the frog to speak to the Doctor, because then it can have a physical form to speak to the Doctor, and it shows what Grace liked. Now, a lot of people had an issue with that, because they thought the villain was a frog. That's not entirely the case. It's just the universe taking that form. The universe itself doesn't really have a proper form, so it's got to choose something. But yeah, a lot of people complained about the fact that the villain was a frog, misunderstanding that what the universe was actually like. And some people even blamed Chris Chibnall, even though it was Ed Heim who wrote the episode. Well, I guess the showrunners are blamed for everything, aren't they? Like I said in my 2018 review, I actually liked that bit. I thought that was probably my favourite bit of the episode. It was really well handled. And I stand by that. I think it is the best scene of the episode. I think the frog, either it's CG or it's a puppet, it is a little fake. Whichever one it is, but it's a little fake. But I still enjoyed the conversation scenes between it and the Doctor, and Sharon D. Clarke does a fantastic performance as the voice of the Solitract in frog form. So yeah, the frog scene at the end is actually my favourite scene of the episode. Not the scene I will complain about the most, unlike other fans of this series, or so-called fans in some of the cases. So there's some good stuff and there's some good emotional stuff, but ultimately the pacing of the episode kind of lets it down. The stuff in the buffer zone isn't very good, apart from a fun performance by Kevin Eldon as Ribbons. And I thought the whole stuff with the monster, I think the stuff in Norway could have picked up the pace a little bit, and the reveal could have been done a little bit later on. That might sound contradictory considering I want the pace to pick up, but I think they could have built up the suspense and the mystery of what's going on if they left it later on. And like I said, if they took out the buffer zone, you could extend the other bits to have more suspense built up in the first half and more interesting sci-fi and emotional stuff happening in the second half. So yeah, take out all the stuff in the buffer zone, or almost all of the stuff in the buffer zone, and you could have more to do and play with those two elements. Casters continue to do a really good job. I don't think Jodie Whittaker is as good in this episode as some of the other ones, but she still does a decent performance, as does Meredith Gill as Yaz, who, outside of the scene with Hana where she's trying to calm her down after Ryan says that her dad might have run away, after that scene, she's not really that necessary for much. She's just kind of there. Ryan's good in this episode, and Tosin Cole does well in this episode, and Bradley Walsh, once again, is fantastic. He's still my favourite character. Graham's still my favourite character, and Bradley Walsh is my favourite actor of this series. Although we do have Sharon D. Clarke back for this episode as well. So we've got a contender here. She's really great. Of course, it's the Solitract in Grace form, but it's still really great. We also have Hana, who's played by the first blind actress in this series, in the show, sorry, and she does a really great job as Hana. Funnily enough, she's not Norwegian, she's English, or British at least, but she does a really great Norwegian accent. However, the actor playing her father actually is Norwegian, and he sounds less convincing as a Norwegian. It's quite bizarre that a Norwegian actor has a less convincing Norwegian accent than a British actor putting on a Norwegian accent, and that's exactly what we get. Not sure about the actress who plays Trina. She might be Norwegian, she might be putting on an accent. I'm not sure. And it also looks really good as well. The stuff in Norway looks pretty nice, and the stuff in the Mirror Universe looks really great. The buffer zone looks pretty great, but it is dark and cave stuff. It's not stuff we haven't seen before in other stories. I think it would have been better if we just left that buffer zone to be kind of in small doses, with the Doctor and other characters exploring it briefly, but not getting into chases with these flesh-eating moths or this stuff with ribbons. I don't think that was needed in this episode. I did like, however, the bit where the moths did eat ribbons, and there was that bit where one of them came out of his eye socket in the skull. I guess that's how this episode ended up getting a 12 rating. Yeah, I think I still could have been a PG. In fact, it feels very you even, apart from that bit. But anyway, so It Takes You Away. This is a good episode. It's a really good emotional episode for our characters. But story-wise, there could have been a few things that could have been edited out or changed up a bit before we went into shooting. But ultimately, we ended up with this episode, and it could honestly have been worse, but I think there could have been some improvements to this episode to make it even better. So I will be giving It Takes You Away an 8 out of 10. I bumped this score up from 7 to 8, and it's now gone from second least favourite of the series to around the middle. I'm not sure if I take over the Ghost Monument or not, because Ghost Monument was just a bit slow and dull, but I think everything that needed to be there was there. I'm not sure what you could take out and improve apart from the pacing. But this one, I think, does need a bit more of an improvement in the story section, so I might put Ghost Monument above that, but I think I would take this one over the Witchfinders for the emotional stuff. If the Witchfinders stuck the landing, that one probably would still be better. But I think I would choose this one based on an emotional level. I did think about giving this story a 9, which would take it above Ghost Monument, but due to my issues that I do have with this story, maybe some stuff that could have been changed and altered before they went into shooting, then I think it has to stick with 8. But it's still a really great emotional story in places when it focuses on that stuff. So that's it from my review, It Takes You Away. I've been won over by a time. Who'd have thought? So this is another episode that's gone up in opinion, and quite significantly as well, as it's gone from the second least favourite to about middle ground. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Next time, The Battle of Ranskoor Av Kolos, and I'm going to be calling it by its full title, not a jokey title like The Battle of Who Cares, whatever, title. It's a review. I have to be serious. I could do a kind of a joke in the review, but I will be referring to it by its full title because that's the job. That's what we got to do. But I might do a jokey title thing in the actual review, but I'll be mainly saying the proper title. I haven't rewatched it yet at time of recording, but it's not got a very good reputation. I mean, to be honest, it's a pick your poison of which of the two finales of Series 11 and 12 you would rather watch. We'll see what Series 13 brings, but yeah, it's pick your poison of whichever finale you least prefer. We'll see how it goes next time, and then we'll be on to the special resolution. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel. It's probably the worst coming soon and as maybe 25 minutes in, and that could have been like if we were doing classic series, but maybe the stuff with maybe the window, but and then second it kind of it gets in the, as does Ribbons, unfortunately, the other character in this story who isn't well, they do get attacked by then the twist, then the reveal, but yeah. However, it's once you get all, and we, and this episode really, As I said in my original 2018 review, that bit didn't bog. Maybe in Arachnids in UK, you could have seen some frog stuff all over. So it is kind of now a lot of people complain, but yeah, there was a lot of criticism. But yeah, there was a lot of people having a go at this episode for the whole stuff about. Apart from some fun performance by Kevin Eldon, Ryan's pretty good though. Totten Cole does an alright job as well in this episode, but actually, funny enough, some people that's I don't know whether that's I don't know whether to laugh or to say karma or to be disheartened or something. It's quite bizarre that a Norwegian accent. It's quite the. I mean, the dad does a good job. He just sounds less convincing as a Norwegian, which is bizarre considering he actually is played by a Norwegian actor. But he still does a good job, as does the actress playing Trina. So overall, this episode. I think it's still going to be PG. So I might put this one above that. I almost did think about I did think about giving this story now 9 out of 10. So yeah, this is probably the episode that's gone up the most in opinion after Demons of the Punjab. That kind of even more so than Demons actually, because even more than Demons, because that one not Kaz. So I think this episode not a jokey, the battle of whatever, because I have to be serious because it's a review. So yeah, and I